Hey, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time, welcome and thank you so much for watching. We are currently right in the middle of doing a no grocery shopping challenge. I did one a couple of months ago where I just went 2 weeks. This time I was challenging myself to go about 4 to 5 weeks. This is week 4, and this is what my fridge, freezer, and pantry all looked like when we first got started. So you can see that I shop a lot of sales and stock up when things are a pretty good discount. So my freezers were full. I had plenty of meat on hand. And now I'm going to show you all of the things that I made in week 4. Things are going to start to get a little bit more interesting, and I'm going to be using a lot more things from the pantry and from the freezer. Now I am spending $25 a week on milk, butter, eggs, and fresh produce. That's the only change that I made. So I did have a lot of cereal throughout the week. So I ate up all the cereal. It's all gone now. And then I also started eating some of the instant ramen. This one is sort of a fried noodle packet, and it was Korean beef flavored. So that I decided to pair with some of the brisket that my husband cooked last month, and he chopped it and it was all in the freezer. So I just grabbed a bunch of that and sauteed that with some peas and boiled that until it was all cooked through. And then I mixed up the sauce from the packet down in the bottom of the bowls and of course cooked the noodles separately. This wasn't a soup, so the actual liquid is not going into the bowl, but I did mix that up first before I added the brisket and the peas. So interestingly enough, though, this one tasted amazing with these additions, and I've never had this particular packet before. My awesome neighbor gave me a bunch of different instant noodles to try last month, so I had a bunch of them on hand, and I'm going through them, and I'm really enjoying all of the flavors. So this one turned out really great. For instant ramen, I also like to use spinach and even add an egg in there sometimes. So it's just awesome to be able to zhuzh it up a little bit and use it for an actual balanced meal. And this one night for dinner here, this particular day, I actually had a freezer meal. I made 2 pot pies. Last time I made pot pies and froze one and just pulled it out and it was ready to go. And I made another loaf of that 2-hour no-knead bread. It just works so beautifully. It's so easy. And then I had lunch. I had leftovers from that chicken pot pie. And then for dinner that evening, I made a brisket chili, again with that brisket that was already cooked. I just diced up an onion and some garlic and heated it up in a hot pot with some olive oil or avocado oil. Then I added that brisket and got it nice and caramelized and heated through, added some black beans, but you can do chili beans too if you like, or any beans. Then I just seasoned it with some cumin and chili powder, a few different seasonings, then added some crushed tomatoes, a little bit of water, a bunch of chili powder, cumin, paprika, oregano, and marjoram, some garlic powder, some pepper. I left out the salt because there tends to be a lot of sodium in the canned items. So anytime I'm using canned things, I just don't salt it nearly as much. So I just didn't do any salt, but you can definitely add salt if you like. Then I just added some frozen corn and let that sort of boil until it was heated through, just about 5 minutes, and added it with my toppings. And there you go. Super easy meal. All right, so this is everything that we're getting today, and not including the fire extinguishers. Let's see what the total is. Okay, so here is everything that we got this week. If I'm ever looking to make things stretch a bit, I do apples and pears or oranges, things like that. They last a lot longer and they go farther. These things, strawberries and blackberries, are going to expire a lot faster. They'll spoil a lot faster, and bananas too. So these 3 will have more of this week. And then the days after that, we'll have apples and pears. And then I got cucumber and avocado for salad. And the romaine lettuce, I can actually grow new romaine lettuce. I'll just cut off the bottom, put it in water, and then I can plant it in the garden and get another harvest out of that. So that's cool. And these are only 79 cents, so I got these. My husband loves them too. And this week, instead of organic milk, we just did this because we are getting real tight on the budget. And then the eggs went up to $3.99, so just got 1 dozen of those. So as you can see, I stretched our $25 budget quite a bit this week and focused a little bit more on the fresh produce. So right when we got home, my daughter wanted a fruit salad, so that's what we had. I put some blackberries, some pears, bananas, and I believe strawberries in this bowl here, and I had some for myself as well. And I also made sort of a little brunch. I used some of that fresh bread that I made and put some preserves on top and served it with some scrambled eggs. So that was really delicious. I'm hoping that my neighbor will drop off some more fresh eggs soon because I'd love to be able to take that out of the budget. But I don't tend to ask. I just wait until they drop off because usually they just drop off the ones that they're not going to be able to eat before they go bad. So it's usually a little surprise. So we'll see if we get fresh eggs this next week or not. But if we don't, then we may just buy another dozen. I did look at Costco the other day and they ran out of eggs completely. They had no eggs in stock. So hopefully the eggs will be back in stock next week. We'll see. So I do love doing a brunch. It just, instead of lunch, a lot of times it just tends to go a little bit farther. And we do a lot of snacky things when my kids aren't at school, so lunch is not usually an issue. But for dinner, I actually felt really proud because I went out to the garden and actually harvested these carrots myself. After a couple years of gardening, I'm finally seeing the fruits of my labor because I started off really slow, and now almost my entire yard has some sort of edible items in it, some sort of fruits or veggies growing. So I'm really happy because these carrots, I grew the first year. I left some carrots in the ground to get the seeds from the carrots. And so now I have thousands of carrot seeds and I've got hundreds of carrots in the backyard. So I went ahead and took the skins off of the carrots. And then I just chopped them just because there was a lot of dirt inside because they grew kind of funky. So I just did that, and then I saved some of the scraps for later. I'll just wash them real good. And now I'm just cubing some of the chicken from the freezer that is still partially frozen, but I actually prefer to cut the chicken breasts when they're partially frozen still because I feel like they're not as slippery and they're just easier to cut through. So I got those all into chunks, and then I got my stock pot out again, melted a bunch of butter. I think it's about a quarter cup. Then I added the chicken. This time I'm making chicken and dumplings using the Cheddar Bay biscuit mix without the cheddar. So in case you're wondering, you can use canned biscuits for this. So after I mostly browned the chicken, not all the way cooked through it, then I added the carrots and some onions and just sauteed those until they were sort of soft. Then I added a little bit of flour and some sage and salt and pepper and just sort of stirred that all up until it was combined. I sauteed that just for a few minutes until the flour was nice and cooked through, and then I added the chicken stock and the milk. Next time I make this recipe, I'm going to add more chicken stock because I like my soups to be a little bit thinner. This ended up being more like pot pie filling the way that it came out after everything was all said and done. So next time, maybe I won't add the flour next time too. So now after it's boiling, I dropped in my already mixed dough. So I mixed that separately and then just sort of dropped in like a spoonful and then covered it for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I uncovered it and stirred it up so all the dumplings would sort of separate. Then I added some canned corn and frozen peas, cooked that through for about 5 minutes. Oh, I also did some garlic powder and onion powder. Next time I will add the seasonings, though, probably directly to the chicken. Just depends on how I do it. But this did turn out really delicious, and I do recommend trying this one. Really tasty, so easy too. And then I had a PB&J for lunch the following day. And the next night was nice because we had a ton of leftovers because the things that I made ended up being really large. So we had some chicken and dumpling soup and some chili. And then I made some popcorn for a treat later that evening. And I actually tried my hand the next day at making homemade bagels. I have never made bagels. I heard that they were a bit time consuming. So my daughter asked though, and I decided, all right, let's give it a go. First, I just started by mixing the flour and the yeast together in a stand mixer, and then in a separate container, I mixed some salt, oil, and some warm water at 110 degrees. That's to kind of help activate the yeast, I guess, so that's why it has to be 110 degrees. Now, I added some salt after I mixed the dough up a little bit, and I was trying to mix it in my mixer, but I don't know for the life of me where I put my dough hook. I actually found it the next week. So, unfortunately, instead of putting it on low for 6 minutes to let it do its own thing, I had to knead this by hand for 15 minutes. And then I did a little window test like the recipe said to do to see if it had enough gluten in it. And when I thought it was about ready, I oiled a big bowl, a large bowl. Then I just oiled the dough and covered it for about 40 minutes or so until it was doubled in size. So once that was done, I just really lightly floured a surface and turned it out onto that surface. I was using a scale this time to try to make sure they were equal sizes, but you don't have to do that. I just measured them out to 2 ounces. Next time I'm going to do double the size though. I'll definitely do 4 ounces, make a bigger bagel, but these actually turned out really nicely for the kids because they're smaller. And instead of rolling it into a rope and like sort of turning it into a circle, This recipe actually mentioned just poking a hole in the middle. After you roll it into a ball, you just poke a hole in the middle with your thumb, and that turns out a lot better because then they stay together the entire time and look a lot nicer. So you can see the difference between the ones, that I kind of rolled together and the ones that were already just a ball. So you can just kind of tell. And I did flavor some of them. So I did onion and garlic powder in some of them, which my husband said was amazing. He likes a savory bagel. I like a plain bagel or a sweet bagel. So for the kids, I actually did a cinnamon and sugar trio, and I boiled them 30 seconds on each side first before baking. Then I put them on a baking tray. The recipe called for cornmeal. I didn't have any, so I just didn't use any, and it turned out fine. And then I used a little egg wash. Highly recommend using the egg wash, although it's not recommended. They just look a lot nicer with the egg wash. And also if you're doing toppings, it helps the toppings stick on the top. For some of them, I added more cinnamon and sugar. Some of them I did everything bagel seasoning, and some of them I added more of the garlic and onion powder. You can add cheese on top. I mean, the options are endless here. So I will definitely be making this again. Now that I found my dough hook, it will be a lot easier. I won't have to knead it by hand, but these were definitely worth it. I froze about half of them. I just let them rest because you have to let these rest for about 20-30 minutes in order for them to continue cooking through. If you eat them right out of the oven, they're not going to be cooked through. So you just have to make sure that you wait. It's hard to wait, but you have to. And then I sliced them all right away in half. And then I froze half of them so I can have them for later, because since there's no preservatives, they're not going to last as long. But I am keeping them in the fridge. And look how beautiful they look. Aren't they gorgeous? They taste really delicious too, and they're so easy. There's not very many ingredients in these. I'm really happy I found this recipe. So now for dinner this evening, I'm finally getting around to using my Impossible sausage that I got for free a few months ago. I don't even remember when I got it, honestly, around Christmas, I think. But it's been sitting in the freezer since then, and I've just been trying to figure out the perfect recipe for it, and this was it. So you could do ground beef and sausage or just ground beef for this, because it's lasagna soup. So just however you like lasagna is fine. So I just diced an onion and then minced up some garlic really finely. Just set that aside until I was ready. I just like to have all my ingredients ready to go. And then I heated my stock pot with some oil. You can do olive oil or avocado oil. Any oil is fine. And then I just put the onions in and sauteed that until it was nice and translucent and soft, and then added my garlic and continued to saute that until it was fragrant, about 30 seconds to a minute until you could smell the garlic. Then I added the Impossible sausage. This is the first time I'm cooking with Impossible sausage. I was really surprised because it cooked up just like regular sausage. And you could smell the Italian seasonings that were in there. I didn't realize this was spicy Italian sausage. So my kids didn't end up eating this, but it was really delicious. I did season it with some Mrs. Dash Italian seasoning. Again, that's no sodium in that. So I love those seasonings. Then I added the chicken stock, a little bit of milk, a whole jar of pasta sauce. I added a little bit of water into the jar to get the rest of the sauce out. Then I just waited for that to boil. And if you don't have pasta sauce on hand, you can use marinara sauce or crushed tomatoes and just add a bunch of seasonings. Any Italian seasonings will be fine, and honestly, it'll turn out the same. Then I added my oven-ready lasagna noodles that were broken. Just had a few left, like 8 ounces or so, and I just boiled these for 12 minutes. It didn't say on the package how long to boil them for because they're oven-ready, but I just kept checking to see how soft they were, and after 12 minutes, it was perfect. So just cook them as long as you think is needed, depending on what kind of lasagna noodle that you have. I would say like 12 to 15 minutes would be good. Then I made a salad. I did cut off the end of the romaine about 2 or 3 inches and put it in water so I can get another harvest hopefully out of it. Then I just cut it in half and a half again lengthwise. And then I made my own dressing, which I like to do. Oil, vinegar, Dijon, some fresh garlic, salt, pepper, and what am I forgetting? Oh, honey. Yeah, honey. Okay, anyway, back to the soup. I added some Parmesan. I didn't have mozzarella, so I did cream cheese instead and just mixed that up until it was nice and melty. And it turned out really, really good. Let me just tell you, I was really surprised. I'm going to put lasagna soup on my menu from now on because it just turned out so delicious. I put a little bit of fresh parsley on it, but you can do fresh basil and some fresh Parmesan. So good. Then I made a little salad with that romaine, some cucumbers, pecans, like the candied kind, added my dressing. Beautiful dinner. One of my favorite dinners of the week. And can you believe I'm only spending $25 a week? It's crazy. So I was digging around in my pantry and I found another box of the protein pancake mix that I got from Aldi a few weeks back. and or maybe it was like a month ago. I don't even remember now. But anyway, I found it and I thought, yay, now I can make a bunch of waffles and pancakes really easily, because I was planning on just making a mix myself, but finding the actual box mix, I just decided to use that. And my daughter smelled them and was like, ooh, pancakes. And I was like, oh honey, it's waffles. But she likes pancakes better, so I decided to go ahead and just make a few pancakes with the mix too. That's what it's designed for anyway. But it turns out great, pancakes, waffles, however you like. And of course we had that for sort of a brunch, a late breakfast that day. And I had a bunch left over to freeze. I always freeze them and then just heat them up when we're ready. And now we're heading to Disneyland for the next day. Let's take a look. Wow, look how beautiful.
Runaway Railway is around your right.
This is the poutine. I can't wait to try it. This is the chile relleno empanada. It looks so delicious. The carbonara mac and cheese and the sirloin. Yum. That's pork belly mac and cheese?
Yep.
Wow, pork belly mac and cheese. As you can see, we tried a lot of great things at Disneyland, and now we're back to the menu for this week. This is what the pantry currently looks like, and we do still have $25 for this next week. We're going to shoot for one more week here, so let's see how it goes. I know that we have Southwestern turkey and rice and bean casserole and salad on the menu, as well as a stir fry with some frozen veggies and turkey and water chestnuts. Then a turkey casserole with ground turkey and frozen veggies. And then I am planning on making something with ground turkey. I'm not sure what. And then we'll most likely do breakfast for dinner with one of the nights. And then definitely do takeout. So stay tuned for more.